Why am I poor again?
In the wrong company.
Why am I poor again?
You're not poor.
Why am I poor? Why am I not a receptionist at NHIF?
That's the question.
And then I get promoted in the tendering committee.
Talk to Amatang.
Is there
I talked to Amatang.
Is there a tender and evaluations committee here?
Would I be employed there? That is the question. But this is a private company. And gentlemen, before I move to the next story, I think this warrants a little discussion, because this is the kind of things that we see in this country. And tragically, if were it not for these investigations, perhaps this they wouldn't have revealed this. But he's just one among many, right? Let me begin with Kimani Wamatangi. If you look at the story of this young man, employed from USIU, 50,000, promoted to the tendering committee, 150,000, which was now triple his salary. And then suddenly, the first year, he buys houses worth 160 million shillings.
Well, you know, Ken, those facts being right, it's extremely incriminating, because you would have to have hit a jackpot that you can't hide if you're able to buy 160 million worth of property in one single year. And part of how you tell, and I am alive to the fact that that is a matter that is in court. It is subject to investigation, and also we have to be true to our law that every man is innocent until proven guilty. But two things, Ken. One, if you want to know in terms of an investor, because I'm a businessman and I've been around for a while now, and I can tell you a few facts for sure. In the property market, if you find most of the people who earn their money steadily and surely in investing in the property market, what they choose with that kind of money available in their hands is to build. Now, so that if you had that money, what you'd find somebody who is earning it in a stream that is steady, they would go and invest and start building and building, because they're sure about their resources and about their income, and they will have savings. But if money is pouring in sacks all of a sudden, then you need to quickly remove it, and it's that urgency to remove it that you find will force somebody to go and buy fully built up property and buy this one and that one and that one and that one. So that in itself becomes very suspect. Now, secondly, one of the biggest issues you ask any person attempting to do business in this country, and especially business with government, is those so-called tender committees. I recently went into one of the parastatals, and as I was sitting at the reception, you hear talk around there that oh, so and so, you know, of course I'm not an investigator, so I didn't get time to, but you hear names being mentioned, that money was taken to him and a team there to the tune of about 350 million in cash for this tender. And it's been going on. That's an open secret, Ken. It's not hidden. And if you want to see and find the most rich people in government now, and I've said this before on this platform, is those tender committee members, procurement officers, very junior officers in government. And if you look at, for example, what has been happening in NYS, most of those guys are procurement officers and tender people.
And amazingly, they never know even how to handle this money, because they come so careless. Like this guy, he said, you know, you buy 8 houses, same location, you know. Obviously, people will know. I'm not teaching them how to hide their money, but let's speak to Jacoy.
I think that's what you've just done. I think you've just taught the crooks that you have to stash them far apart.
Yes.
But first, let me just thank this Haji gentleman. I think he is leading the revolution in Kenya. And I think Kenya is going through a very interesting revolution. People are going to cry. This young man is just a drop in the ocean. There are many people who have been living like this. Many, many people. And that's why so many people are going to cry. Interestingly, they happen to, this guy stands out because he comes from Kisii. Nobody's crying out for him. But the other ones crying the cry will just be louder and louder and louder, because we must catch these thieves. And how I wish a gentleman, a person like that, he's not a gentleman. He is at the NHIF. You saw the prosecutors trying to say that people could have died. She is wrong. People died. People die in this country so wantonly. Mm-hmm. We will not stop this charade at the NHIF if we keep giving NHIF to private clinics and doctors. NHIF must be limited to government institutions, because government generally does not steal from government. So it is a structural window that is letting these people steal. If you took NHIF to be a government facility that is used by government and by the to help the public, you will not have the things you are hearing. I think this is the smaller one of the scandals. Smaller one. I think there are many, many more
that we don't know about.
That we don't know about. All I want to plead, because I had my friend Senator here saying those are, small things. They are fictitious. Ken, if you went to a Gor Mahia and an AFC match, and in the middle of the match, a referee pulled out a red card and flashed it, 9 out of 10 times, that red card will catch a Luo or a Luya. So if the government is constituted by Kikuyus and Kalenjins, those are the people that we're going to catch. So stop making noise. Let the DPP and the DCI do their job. Thank you.
Okay. And Senator, this is just one of the government institutions. I'm looking at the other government institution that this happens, and I know they live within us and among us. KRA, very young junior KRA officials, same thing, and you wonder, how do they amass such wealth in so little time?
Well, that's the truth. There's nothing to hide about it. It's the Kenyan legend that goes about that when you drive in the village and you see a big house somewhere, say in Siaya, where Jakoyo comes from, and you ask, hey, what a beautiful home. What does this guy do? You're told, he works at KRA. And that's enough explanation for you to understand. You're left, your imagination is left to do the rest. This happens a lot. However, there are certain things that, and I think I agree with Kimani Wamatangi. He said the facts holding true. And I think that's a very good point to begin with. Because from experience, what I have come to realize also is that sometimes it is not enough until you hear the other side of the story. It will be good to know his defense. It will be good for him to tell us what is his magic. If he owns 8 houses and all that we know of him is that he is a receptionist at NHIF earning 150,000, no other known source of income, then for sure it will be proper for him to explain to the country. I would wish to hear from him what is his explanation of the source of his wealth. The reason why I say that is that when you read the Bible and in the book of Proverbs, I can't get the right verse off my head, but I can later give it. It says that when an accused is arraigned in court, he appears guilty until he's given the chance to also speak out, which is the truth. That sometimes when you hear from one side of a story, you say clearly, this is a thug and we need to set him off. So the thing is, until we hear and get to understand, because the questions that have been raised by DPP Nurdin are very credible. Everybody will want to know how somebody who earns 150,000 ends up with that amount of wealth. But for me to condemn him as Jakoyo would, I don't think I have all the material facts for me to render until I hear from either him or his lawyers the explanation of his source of wealth.
Okay. It's not even in reference to this particular individual only, but generally, this is the life, and unless you are a businessman, unless you are, even politicians are not that rich. Politicians, you don't find so many politicians with so much wealth. I mean, there is no explanation for me. Eseli, for me, there's no explanation. You can't explain that wealth. You can't.
You know, this country, we lost it when we started glorifying theft and vilifying the just. To the extent that, in fact, when you're in a certain position, it's like people expect you to steal. And if you don't, you are a fool. I think this kind of mindset has brought us problems. To the extent that now, the intelligent people in this country are so intimidated by the fools with their money. And these fools are also taking over the political space. To the extent that they have even bought degrees to rival the intelligent people. It is tragic. It is so tragic that let's not play with this war against corruption. The things that are ruining this country.
But Dr. let me stop you. Why are we calling it corruption? This is theft.
It's theft, yeah.
Yes, it's outright
outright theft.
Yes.
The things that are ruining this country are tribalism, impunity, and corruption. These are the triplets we sired at independence. When we allowed public servants to do business with the government, we sired those three triplets: impunity, tribalism, and corruption. Until it has reached a stage where if you are not stealing, then you are like a fool. In fact, I'm wondering, the DPP is moving too slowly. He has not told us what's happening in roads. He has not told us what's happening at NSSF.
Yes.
Because one thing I know,
there is something in there.
You go to Karen, see who lives in Karen. Most of those people are public officers. Some of them very young to boot, holding very junior posts. I mean, it's there. It's obvious. I don't think you need some kind of genius to unearth these things. This country is rotten to the core.
Okay.
And this corruption money has now invaded the political space, and that is why we are having wrong-headed politics now. Because the fellows running the political scene are not the right people. And that's the problem we are having. I mean, we have actually, if we are not careful, we might have damaged this country irreparably.
Okay.
Unless we bite the bullet now and say no more.
Okay.
It is not about tribes. It is. I mean, you can see it clearly here. That Sagwe is a Mukisi. The guy from NHIF is a Kikuyu. Yes. So it is not about tribes. It is about our values. We've lost our values.
Okay.
To the point that when you get a public service job, you've not got it to serve the people, you've got it to serve yourself and your family.
But that's how we've been cultured, Mheshimiwa. That's how we've been cultured, because the first thing you think of, if today, is the same thing I heard about policemen. When you're being employed, the first thing you ask for, can I go to the traffic department? You know, because that's where you know they'll be.
First of all, to be employed as a policeman,
yes,
in my rural place, you have sold land to bribe.
To bribe, to get in there.
To
so
get
you
in
want
there.
to recover your money first.
No, that means you've already employed the wrong person.
But even it's about the people taking the money.
To be a chief,
yes,
you sell land to bribe to be appointed as a chief.
Okay.
That is the wrong person. So actually, we've messed up this country totally.
Actually, I agree with you. As I speak to Dr. Halwale, I agree with you, because a friend of mine the other day just told me that even Karen has become undesirable because everyone lives there. Yes. He asked me, Ken, where are you living? Everyone lives in Karen nowadays. It's a lot of money.
You find some people there, and you wonder, now,
how did they get here?
If I've worked
all
diligently all these years and I've not managed to get here, how is this guy so smart that he got here?
Okay.
Then when you ask them, they say, well, you've been working hard, I've been working smart.
Exactly.
Now you are even glorifying working smart and giving it to people who don't deserve that title. You are giving it to thieves
We no longer earn money, Dr. Halwale. We make money in this town.
Yeah. I mean, look at this guy earning 150,000 bob.
Yeah.
And actually has property that can raise him rent way above
the money, but it's still
Why would
sticking
you
there.
stick to 150,000 job?
Bonnie.
I think Onyancha, just like Kafura, Josephine Kafura, in the NYS scandal, is now the poster boy of the corruption at NHIF. Nothing new, because that is what Kenya has become. To me, is where are the control systems? They're there. The relevant institutions are in place. In fact, if Kenyans will care to know, it is not possible in this country for you to withdraw 1 million shillings from your account or deposit 1 million shillings into your account without the authorities being alerted. So it means that there is a chain of corruption which must be broken. The DPP has started making the right moves. But the big question is he getting the necessary support? If you ask me, the answer is no. From the time the DPP started making the big steps that he did, we have not seen a single case at the judiciary concluded. We would have loved by now, months since the DPP started taking action, to see that convictions have been made by the judiciary. So the question is on the judiciary, why are they dragging on cases concerning corruption? I would love a situation whereby, for example, members of parliament, and of course in conjunction with the judiciary, legislated quickly so as to make crimes against corruption be treated in the same way we treat election petitions. If we can conclude election petitions, which usually are more complex, to actually prove that somebody stole an election is more complex than to prove that Onyancha was stealing money. So which case should be concluded faster? The one of Onyancha or the one of an election petition? So people are sleeping on their jobs. What has now happened is that the issue of tendering has become like drug trafficking. That's why overnight, a young man can become a multimillionaire simply because he sits on the committee that makes the critical decisions when tenders have to be given out. Unfortunately, behind this young man, there is a procurement officer, highly qualified. There is an internal auditor, highly qualified. There's an accountant within the department or in the ministry, highly qualified. And there is a lawyer. So our professionals, much as my brother says that it is only the people with limited education who are stealing our degrees for them to earn the money we should have earned, much as you have a point, but also remember that the people I have described are highly qualified professionals.
Some of them stole their degrees.
Yes, some of the lawyers, it is true.
Some of them.
So is it time, Daktari, perhaps you think the whole evaluation tender committee should be looked at, not just an individual? Instead of targeting one individual, they should all be looked at, and probably we'll get such stories out of it.
What happened to the lifestyle audit? The lifestyle audit should have been serious, wider, and targeting very many people.
Okay.
Otherwise, that lifestyle audit that was so limited and we've never got the results is not going to be useful to us.
Okay.
Most of us who are on this panel, in fact all of us, have had an opportunity to read over and over again the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, either because you are sitting on Public Accounts Committee or you're chairing this or that in Parliament. And I can assure you that there is nothing wrong with that law. Nothing.
Okay.
The problem is in this country, impunity. Impunity. Why would the people, the internal audit, for example, allow this young man to become so rich within so short a time, unless, of course, the young man was a conduit to what was going on within
Okay.
that particular department.
Okay, as I conclude this discussion, I'd like to talk about the asset recovery, because now we are reading about the DPP and the asset recovery team moving in to freeze their bank accounts and recover and reserve these assets ahead of recovery. Is it even possible? Yesterday, we had the statistics that so far only $500 million, around 470 or 450 million shillings have been recovered so far by the EACC, and they're targeting a further 2.1. Against that, between 2011 and 2016, we have lost 368 billion shillings, right?
I think, Ken, what you're saying is even an understatement, but I don't think that is the point. I think the assets will be recovered. I think the revolution is just beginning. I think what we need to do is go by the suggestion of Bonnie as a country. Mm-hmm. You have seen scenarios where people go back to court to say, allow me into my asset, give me back my asset. And the court system is the problem now. Mm-hmm. I think the political goodwill is beginning to show, but the courts are not working. The prosecution is still not working. But I think the systems, it takes time. I want to agree with Dr. Eseli and Bonnie that there's nothing wrong with the law, including that of asset recovery. The problem is the fabric of the society. We must do something from nursery school in terms of educating our people about values. We just don't have the values to go with it. We need to go basic. It is not only the big fish. Why is it that you try driving from here to Buruburu or try driving here to Naivasha? See how many policemen are on the road taking 50 shillings. It is what we are seeing. What do you want our children to see? I want the politicians, the political leadership, which is Uhuru Kenyatta. Number one, to stop open corruption, where you see people, money exchanging hands and people dying. Like this matatu is killing people. We are seeing it. What do you expect a kid who has seen, they know they are sitting in a matatu that is full, carrying excess passengers, and is seeing a policeman taking 50 shillings. Why can't we go back to the point where we were at the beginning of 2003, where ordinary people could arrest policemen? The problem is this open corruption. You know, you can't even blame this kid. He grew up seeing corruption openly. He doesn't know any other way. So we must stop them. But we must stop the future generation from seeing open graft. Take it out of the roads. Like Dr. Eseli says about, for you to survive in police force, you must be in a traffic department. I was the last person who revised the traffic rules in this country. There's nothing like Michuki rules. They are Jacoyo rules. Yeah. I am the one who did the raft of the amendments. I deleted in law the so-called traffic department. It is not there in law. But you still see people on the streets with those black and white berets. Why is the police resisting? They are the ones arresting the Onyanchas, but they are the ones resisting change in their own departments. So we must look at this thing holistically. And to the asset recovery, like the 8 houses, they should have gone back to the public immediately. You know, the courts must allow us, don't drag these cases in court.
I hold a different view on Jacoyo's last point. I know, because of all this trouble that we've been through as a country, reading about this theft, you know, you imagine the kind of anger that boils down the population of the republic. You're a young parent, you can't afford to pay school fees for your kids, your child is sick, you take them to hospital, your NHIF card is not working, then you read this kind of stories. You're bound to be angry. And that is very much justified. But as leaders, it is not in our place to get angry, Jacoyo. It is in our place to ensure that things are done properly. In countries that have managed to slay the dragon of corruption, at least to levels that the country can be proud of and say that we are nearing zero tolerance to corruption, it is not by doing what you're asking the courts to do. It is by making the criminal justice system functional. And it's not about telling the court that whoever is presented before you, charge them so that the country can be happy and we can say that you are fighting corruption. You know, the point that we should be making is to ensure, you know, in a country like ours, Jacoy, where opposition is completely dead, parliament has been muzzled, then the only other place that we have where people can get a fair hearing, because we want to condemn the right thieves and not acquit those who have stolen and condemn innocent people, is by ensuring that our criminal justice system is properly functioning. And I don't think the right way to tell them is that anybody that appears before you, quickly judge them. I think that's the wrong advice.
But before, I want to speak to Kimani, but I just want you, Senator, to answer one question. When you find a thief stealing, when you find why are you still taking them to court? Take them to jail. You found them stealing. Why must you subject them to the judicial process? You found them stealing.
Because we are a democracy. Because
but that's what we've been doing, Senator.
It is because of this document that is before
But nothing has changed with that document.
We live under a constitution.
Nothing has changed with that document.
My friend,
nothing has changed.
Back in the ancient,
yes,
when things used to be done the way you're proposing, then even anybody who disagrees with you and you are a ruler, the next thing that you needed to do is just to parade them and say, I've caught him stealing.
No. There's apparent stealing. There's apparent stealing.
Listen, Ken.
Yes.
Listen to me very well. Yes. In proper application of the law, and they say this, that in the moral philosophy of the law, you'd rather have 99 thieves walking on the streets than have one innocent person. Man.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
That's all we are arguing for.
Okay.
A fair. How difficult is it?
But it's taking time, like Boni says. It's taking time.
Not by lynching.
Let me hear Kimani. Let me hear Kimani.
Ken.
Yes.
Two things. First is that remember a few weeks ago, the DPP was in court himself. And when the DPP went to court, he was petitioning the court to make certain judgments in view of matters that he had himself previously prosecuted, but felt that in the way things are being done and have been done, then his quest for what you would call results was being frustrated. And that's why he had moved to court. Unfortunately, or most likely, he wouldn't, in our court system, in our judicial system, succeed in that kind of quest. And so what does that tell you? It is my view that for this fight against corruption to succeed, that for us to be able to have what we yearn for, and what you have heard from our leaders, my colleagues here, all speaking about, I think we need a serious sit-in between ourselves as legislators, between the executive of government, between those whom we have mandated to lead this fight, for example, the DCI, the DPP, and the judiciary. Because there are certain fundamental changes that must be made in various laws to make it effective. I'll give you an example. For example, if you look at the law around counties and so on, and even in the constitution, it is only probably within county governments where a governor is recognized by law as the chief executive officer of a county, and thus that makes him also culpable for decisions that are made that are financial, even if it is made downwards by a CEC. Now, but if you look at, for example, at parastatals, where you have board chairmen and CEOs and MDs, if you look at the binding law itself, in terms of execution of duties, the call to roles and decisions, and especially financial decisions, you will find that there exists a lot of disconnect, such that actually what you had, I'm sure you listened to some of the submissions by the lawyers who are there, including, the humorous one that these are generic charges. You had the one saying there's no charge here, these people. And I'll tell you, unless we fill in those vacuums in law, because they exist differently. And that would only happen if we all made that decision, that unless we get to sit, and I would want to urge the DPP and the DCI, if they want to succeed fully, because what we are trying to change is a culture and a way of doing things. But as long as we deal with it the way we are dealing with it, but yet the fabric of it is not yet sorted, we will fight this fight, go on ahead, but eventually we'll go back to where we are. Now, lastly, on this question that you had asked on assets, maybe I would ask a question. Since when we started recovering assets and up to now, when have we had, or probably you can in the media, have you heard probably that all the assets that were recovered in this year and that year, they were disposed of, these monies were injected back to the public service or system or wherever? So, I mean, you would want to ask yourself, since all those, forget this that were recovered last week and last year and this year, but since time immemorial, when have you had a statement somewhere saying that all these were the assets that were recovered in the year 2013 up to 2017, and so now we have liquidated them, and this money is now injected back to? If you want to know, one of the most controversial places in this government and in every government, it is a place called unclaimed assets, where there lies billions and billions and billions upon billions of shillings that are unutilized. And the question always is asked, what do you do with this money? Use it to do this, but it still lies there. Okay. In that assets recovery program, even right now, you will see statements, we have recovered these assets, we have recovered these assets. But to prove to those who make it their business to plunder and loot public assets and property and funds, the demonstration would be more complete if you said that all the assets we recovered from this team publicly, you have seen they have been liquidated, they have been injected, and you have said we have built 5 primary schools in the Ministry of Education using these funds that were stolen by people who are charged in stealing or with stealing from the Ministry of Education. In NHIF or any other place, you would be saying we have built this dispensary. If it is in any other place, and then people would get to now internalize and understand that indeed these funds are supposed to go into that system. But if we make it, this continuous,
we recover. We don't. We have to take a break unless it's very pressing.
I think first thing we need to do is change our audit system. First, beef up the Auditor General's office. Put in the right personnel, including engineers, architects, and all those, and then go to performance audit, value for money audit, as the only audit system.
Okay.
That way, we'll start catching these people. And from the auditor's reports, the DPP moves. Stop this EACC. EACC is a gatekeeper of corruption. Get them out of there. Auditor's report, DPP moves.
Okay. And DPP such as Kinoti. All right, gentlemen, I think we've exhausted this discussion unless...
We've not.
You've not exhausted.
Because when you talk about assets,
Yeah.
the EACC itself sits in a house that belongs to the government and has been stolen by lawyers.
Yes.
They're paying the DPP, I mean the EACC is paying rent, that house called Integrity Center.
They bought it finally.
No, but who sold it? Where was it sold? I know the story of Integrity Center, and I know the people who have been who are involved in trying to take it away from the government. They have succeeded, but the DPP sooner or later, I'm sure, will move in there. I know his work is cut out for it. But I wanted to say this finally. I think even as we end this debate, this discussion, it is fair for us when we talk not to try to say that the courts have to prove the DPP right. The DPP has done his investigations. It is the courts to sit there and arbitrate. Let their lawyers prove them. But now that we are saying that the DPP must prove somebody guilty after doing investigations, that is also true. But the DPP is doing a good job. Like this case of Onyancha, which is the subject of discussion. It could never have been revealed that the boy has bought 8 houses if the DPP did not investigate. So we cannot begin by castigating him. Let me tell you the story of Jerry Rawlings and Ghana. I've been to Ghana a few times. It is a country which people are civilized. They are black like us. When they talk, they are not loud. When they reason well. They have very few thieves. You see, when we are increasing taxes, they are zero rating VAT because they are reasoning together. What did Jerry Rawlings do? When he took power militarily, and let me advise my young brother, the good senator, he took these people to a stadium and shot them. And the people told him, it is not enough after he had shot 15 people. And he said, some people may be innocent. The people said, send us message. Sometimes you have to do it. The Chinese who have brought this corruption here now, in China, if you fail to pay your taxes, if you steal, it is the bullet, it is not the court. And your family must pay for the bullet that killed you before they are given the body. That is what happens in China. So we must zero rate corruption in some kind of way, and we cannot use the courts because the courts are not working.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This corruption,
Can we take a break?
This
Wait,
corruption of ours,
I've said this before and I want to repeat it. It starts at budget making.
Okay.
You see, like NYS 1, they got a supplementary budget which they didn't deserve and went ahead to steal it. Look at Kenya Pipeline. They got a supplementary budget
13 billion.
which they should not have got, and they proceeded to steal it. It starts at budget making stage.
Okay.
So I also lay blame to the house where I sit in,
Parliament,
that we are not tracking the budget properly. We are not actually interrogating the budget properly. That is why we are having all these problems. But something simple, like trying to enforce the Michuki rules. What has happened is we have just made the traffic police richer. Yeah. All they are doing, yesterday I was driving to Thika, and you can't believe it. There's a place where they have written 110. That means you should do a speed of at least 110 kilometers per hour. This policeman flags me down. I stop and he tells me you are doing 114. I told him, my friend, I did not even go beyond 90. So we argued for a while. Then I told him, by the way, what you are doing is wrong. If this is what you are doing to all the wananchi, ni makosa sana. And then he let me go.
Okay.
You know, and I mean, what he was trying to do was to see if he can get some money
out of it. Okay.
This is sick. If the police are at that point, then who is actually guarding us?
Okay.
Who is guarding us?
All right. Gentlemen, on that note, you say we've not exhausted the conversation. We'll see after the break if we can talk more about it. But when we come back, I'd also like to talk about now the tribal connotation that is underlying the war on corruption and what has been said about it. Stay with us. We're back in a moment.